Today is April 16th. It is CST Bootcamp Day 6. You should be starting this video before you move on to your lessons. Let's go ahead and review the objective before we begin. Students will be able to independently work towards mastery of various topics by completing topic lesson cycles and record their progress by checking off each completed lesson on a progress tracker. So go ahead and do number 1 now, which says to review the objective for the day, rate your current level of understanding with regards to the objective. Hopefully you're at a 3 or a 4 since we've been doing this for over a week now. Alright, let's look at what we're doing next. It says, directions. Review the content below and answer the questions that follow. So let's go ahead and read the story first. As you can see, what I notice right away is that each one of the sentences is numbered. So when I read it, I'm not going to read those numbers, but I think those are going to be important later when I answer my questions. All right, this is titled The Journey of the Famous Garbage. The people in the United States make enough garbage each day to fill over 100,000 garbage trucks. New York City alone throws out enough garbage each day to fill the Empire State Building. What happens to all this trash? For many years, trash was taken to landfills. Bulldozers pushed the garbage into large piles. Then the piles were covered with dirt to keep away the animals, bugs, and disagreeable smells. Though garbage goes down the apartment garbage chute quickly, it remains in a landfill for a long time. As a result, landfills often close because they cannot take any more trash. For years, few people talked about how much garbage there was or even knew it was becoming a problem. Then, in the spring of 1987, 3,000 tons of garbage suddenly became famous because the garbage had no place to go. The landfills in Islip, New York could hold no more garbage. North Carolina agreed to take it, but when the garbage arrived, the people of North Carolina no longer wanted it. They learned that the trash contained toxic materials, and they would take only trash that was toxic-free. The barge sailed on to Louisiana, but the people there didn't want it either. Next, the barge was taken to Cuba, and then to Belize and Mexico. These countries also said no. After 2 months on the ocean, the barge sailed back to New York Harbor. There it stayed for almost 4 months, while officials debated what to do with it. Finally, they reached an agreement to burn the trash and bury its ash in a landfill in New York. The 6,000-mile search for a home for the garbage had finally come to an end. The good thing about this famous garbage was that it made people stop and think about ways to control our trash. We still have lots of garbage, but more and more of it is being recycled into new products. Okay, now that we've read the story, let's go ahead and look at the questions. Number 1 says, which of these, if any, is the best way to correct sentence 10? So let's go and look at sentence 10 first. That's the first thing we want to do. And I'm scanning, then I see 10. It says, then in the spring of 1987, 3,000 tons of garbage suddenly became famous because the garbage had no place to go. So right now I see that sentence 10 is in 2 sentences, but I know that we don't start a sentence with because. So that tells me right away that something is wrong with this sentence. Let's go ahead and go back and look at our options. We have option A, which says, then in the spring of 1987, 3,000 tons of garbage suddenly became famous because the garbage had no place to go. Okay, so they did combine the sentences, so that looks a little bit better. But I'm not sure about that 3,000 tons because that has 2 commas around it, and I know that means that's extra information. But actually, if we take that part out and we read, then in the spring of 1987, of garbage suddenly became famous. That doesn't make sense. So I know that A is not correct. I'm going to go ahead and mark that off. Let's look at option B. Sentence B says, then in the spring of 1987, 3,000 tons of garbage suddenly became famous because the garbage had no place to go. Okay, this one sounds a lot better. Then in the spring of 1987, comma, because we do pause, 3,000 tons of garbage suddenly became famous because the garbage had no place to go. That sounds good to me, and it looks like it follows the rules. I'm just putting an asterisk by it, but I'm going to rule out C and D just to make sure. Sentence C says, then in the spring of 1987, 3,000 tons of garbage suddenly became famous, exclamation point, because the garbage had no place to go. Okay, already I see that this is starting a sentence with because. So I wanted to make sure these sentences were combined and not two separate sentences. So let's go ahead and cross off C. We know that's not right. D is correct as is. We already talked about that it is not correct as is. So I'm going to cross that off. That leaves me with B, which is what I thought it was. So now we know for sure we were correct. B is the correct answer. Please make sure you mark B and you're ready to move on to question 2. Question 2. Which of these, if any, is the best way to correct the underlined word in sentence 7? All right, let's go ahead and go up here and look at sentence 7. So I see sentence 7 over here. Though garbage goes down the apartment chute, the apartment garbage chute quickly, it remains in a landfill for a long time. All right, so let's look at those options. The word that is supposed to be underlined is chute. So let's go ahead and underline that right now. Chute. Okay. So we have the word chute, and I see some different options. I see S-H-O-O-T-E. I see C-H-O-O-T, C-H-U-T-E, or no change. It's just the way it is. Option A is S-H-O-O-T-E. Well, I know that when you have a double vowel, it's pronounced oot. You don't need that E, so that can't be correct. I'm going to cross off A. Shoot, C-H-O-O-T. When you shoot a basketball or shoot a deer, I know it starts with an SH, and that's the sound that we're looking for, the garbage chute. So I'm going to go ahead and cross that off. Chute, C-H-U-T-E, is like a parachute or a chimney chute, and that is different than the action word when the garbage shoots across quickly. Okay, so I know that that's not that word. I'm going to cross that off, and that means that there's no change. S-H-O-O-T is the correct spelling of the word shoot in this sentence. Let's go ahead and circle that. Number 3, which of these, if any, is the correct spelling of the underlined word in sentence 13? Let's go read sentence 13. It says, they learned that the trash contained toxic materials and they would take only trash that was toxic free. So let's go ahead and underline toxic free. That's the word we're looking for. All right, let's see what our options are. So we have toxic free with toxic italicized. Well, if it says what's the correct spelling, toxic being italicized has nothing to do with spelling. I'm going to cross that off because we wouldn't italicize a word anyway. All right. Toxic slash free. Well, we don't use slash in a spelling word. If we're trying to spell out the single word or make it into 2 words, there would never be a slash. So we know it's not that. So we have C, toxic dash free, which means that it's hyphenated, meaning that it's not quite put together because it's still 2 separate words. Or we have D, which is no change, which is just writing it as 1 word, toxic free. Well, I've never heard toxic free as 1 word before. There's nowhere that would be used as its own word. So I'm going to cross off D, and I'm going to put C, that it is hyphenated, toxic dash free, meaning that the two words are being used together in this instance, but in this rare instance only. Okay? Now you are finished with your do now. Please make sure you go over the champs on the back of your page before you move on to your video lesson. It's important to remember that you're at a volume level 0 100% of the time, that you need to raise your hand and wait for your instructor if you need help, that you are only supposed to stay on the websites assigned and respect all of your materials. For your activity, your movement, do not get out of your seat without permission, and we'll know you're participating if you're working independently only. Okay, go ahead and get out your tracker at this time and locate which lesson you're ready to work on next.